for Reuters. She serves as the advisor for the Asian American Journalists Association and sits on the Freedom of Information Committee for the Society of Professional Journalists. And our other moderator is Jackie Nguyen, who is an Emmy Award-winning journalist. She began her career at KMRI in Palm Springs. She is a graduate of SDSU, and she seized an opportunity to move back home to San Diego after she began working part-time for 10 News, an ABC affiliate here in San Diego. She's also worked at Fox 5 and San Diego 6 News, and she's also the director of marketing and public relations for the Asian Heritage Awards. So that's our moderator.
Hello, good evening everyone. My name is Jackie Nguyen, and I just wanted to share with you a little bit about the format that we have going on tonight for our event. Basically, what we're going to be doing is that each of the candidates will be able to have 3 minutes for their opening statement, and they'll also have 3 minutes to answer the questions. Now, at the discretion of either myself or Hua, each of the candidates will also receive 1 minute for rebuttal, and then towards the end, they're also going to get 3 minutes for closing statements here. So we wish the candidates good luck, and now my co-moderator Hua will also introduce the candidates.
Thanks, Jackie. So our first candidate is Congressman Bob Filner. Congressman Filner represents California's 51st Congressional District. Previously was the 50th. He has been serving since 1993, was the chairman of the House Committee on Veterans Affairs from 2007 to 2011. The 51st District is one of the most ethnically diverse in the nation, including much of San Diego's southern section, the cities of Chula Vista and National City, and all of Imperial County. Please welcome Congressman Filner. Our second candidate is Assemblyman Nathan Fletcher. Assemblyman Fletcher represents the 75th Assembly District, which includes the city of Poway, portions of Escondido, La Jolla, University City, Mira Mesa, Scripps Ranch, Rancho Bernardo, Rancho Penasquitos, and Carmel Valley, and the communities of Fairbanks Ranch and Rancho Santa Fe.
Welcome, gentlemen. One more thing I forgot to add, I apologize, is the timekeeper tonight will be Alex here. Just to let you know, candidates, that he will be holding up a yellow card when there's 30 seconds left and a red card when time has run out. So we're going to start off with our very first question here. And then we're also going to be getting questions from the audience here that we've already taken a look at. We have a few questions here. But first, we're going to start off with questions here, candidates, that... Sorry about that. I'm jumping the gun here. We're going to start off with opening remarks. Congressman Bob Filner.
Good evening, and thank you all for being here. It's great to be in Mira Mesa and the Town Council and the supporting organizations that are doing this. You know, we're going to face, as Mayor of San Diego, very complex issues. We're going to try to answer questions tonight in a few minutes, and you'll see 30-second spots. But these are very complex issues, whether we're talking about the economy, the environment, public transportation, education. These are difficult issues. And you got to have some knowledge and experience in dealing with them. I have that. Many of you know I started politics in San Diego. Well, I came to San Diego 42 years ago to teach history at San Diego State. I have a PhD in history from Cornell University and taught for 22 years at San Diego State. But I was elected to the school board where I served for a term and was elected president of the board. I was elected twice to the San Diego City Council, and I was elected deputy mayor during that time, and was elected to Congress for 10 terms. My proudest service, I think, being chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee in the Congress for 4 years, from 2006 to 2010. And it's not just experience, but it's achievement in those offices. It's leadership in those offices that's important. I'll just give you a few examples from when I was chair of the Veterans Committee in Congress. I give great pride and admiration and respect for Nathan, who served in the Marines. And I thought that all 25 million veterans in our nation ought to have the care, the love, respect, and dignity that anybody who has served their nation should get. And I went to work to try to help veterans, especially especially both the more recent vets from Iraq and Afghanistan, but also older vets. You know, the veterans the troops that we drafted to World War II from the Philippines were, after the war was over, were given over to the new Philippine government and said, all the benefits we promised you were taken away. That was not right, that was not moral. And I went to work to try to get veterans, for Filipino veterans, back. And I did in Congress. I had the president sign my bill to restore Filipino veterans. After 62 years of fighting for them, the Filipino vets got their honor and dignity. But we also made sure that tens of billions of dollars went into mental health care of our veterans, especially those returning from Iraq and Afghanistan, those that suffered in Vietnam. We made sure that that there would be, for example, care for the homeless. The President and the Secretary of the Veterans Administration announced my plan to end veterans' homelessness within 5 years. And if we do that, we'll only have half the problem to face as mayors in San Diego. And I was the one who wrote the GI Bill for the 21st century. A bill which said to our friends from Iraq and Afghanistan, you served our nation, you deserve to have a free college education. You deserve to buy a house for a low down payment, as we had after World War II when my father came back from the war. There are 700,000 veterans in college because of that bill. I'm very proud of that, and I look forward to other questions this evening.
Great. Well, thank you for having us here, and I appreciate Bob showing up. You know, we've had a lot of these debates, and all too often it's just been the two of us. And I think the public deserves to hear from their candidates. You deserve to ask them questions, and I hope as you make consideration for your vote, you will appreciate the candidates that have been willing to come out, and I appreciate Bob. I also like to tease him. He talks a lot about helping veterans get a job. Well, I'm a veteran looking for a job. I want to be your mayor. And Bob, I'd appreciate your support, maybe. But we've had a great time on the campaign.
When he is unemployed, he's going to have a job in my administration.
He's giving me a whole series of jobs. But you know, these are important issues. You got to get to know the candidates a little bit. I get asked 5 or 6 times a day if I'm of the Fletchers of Fletcher Hills. I am not. I'm from the factory working Fletcher family. My dad was a factory worker. I grew up in a very working class, blue collar family. I was the first one in my immediate family to go to college, and I appreciate how hard my parents worked so that my brother and I could have those opportunities. And now as a father of 2 young boys, how hard I work to make sure that they have those same opportunities. In addition to hard work, I got a great lesson in service growing up. My mom runs shelters for battered women and children. My dad's factory closed. He became a police officer, became a law enforcement, which is public service. My opportunity to serve came first in the Marine Corps, where I really combined hard work and service. I spent a decade, served in a number of the recent conflicts, and I really think those experiences lend a great perspective to the rest of your life. They give you a calmness to draw from in stressful or difficult environments. You truly demonstrate the essence of leadership in terms of being a team commander, being responsible for the lives of the men under your control, your command. And when my time in the Marine Corps was over, I wanted to continue to serve. I wanted to continue to try and demonstrate leadership. I ran for the State Assembly, where we've demonstrated it is possible to get things done. Working in a bipartisan fashion. We passed Chelsea's Law. We passed regulatory relief, which has helped a number of small businesses right here in Mira Mesa. We passed legislation to help people keep their health insurance. You know, people say if you lose your job, you can get COBRA insurance, but you can't afford COBRA insurance if you have a job. How do you do it if you lose a job? We did that to try and solve it. And I think that what it's going to take moving forward to really help San Diego become all that it can be is someone who's demonstrated leadership, someone who's demonstrated an ability to bring people together behind a problem, someone who has a real vision for our city. And I represent all of that. I am very committed to trying to rebuild great neighborhoods, a great city, and a great future. And I look forward to having great discussions tonight. So thank you very, very much.
Great, thank you very much. Our very first question will have to do with technology. So San Diego, and specifically Mira Mesa, is home to some of the biggest tech and biotech companies in the nation, such as Qualcomm and Gen-Probe. And as mayor, what would you do to encourage more tech, biotech to come to San Diego, and how would you help grow the companies already here? Congressman Filner.
Okay, I'm sorry, how many minutes do we have?
You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes, thank you. You know, biotech has become one of the incredible success stories in San Diego. I think I'm the only candidate who has college degrees in the sciences, so to better understand what the biotech and the high-tech community actually do. But I have been working, since I was on the school board and before, to make San Diego a receptive center, to realize that this is an area where we have to grow, and to offer the kind of incentives, whether they be tax or zoning or other kinds of incentives, to make sure that we become the center of biotech. When many years ago we were competing with Austin, Texas for a supercomputer center, and we lost that competition because the community didn't even know how to fight. Our San Diego community didn't know how to fight and show how much we would contribute to biotech, and we didn't compete at the same level in terms of our offers to the biotech community, or to get that supercomputer. We had to learn how to do that, and I have been involved in those efforts. We should continue those efforts. You know, I represented the South County. I represent, when I was on the city council, I represented the south part of our county, Otay Mesa, and we set aside in our planning a whole area that we could locate in industrial and manufacturing. And so we would encourage research in areas like Mira Mesa, but we would have places set aside for manufacturing. That was an important stimulus to bring people here, because they could, in fact, any drugs or other devices that were worked on could be, in fact, manufactured right here in San Diego. But the thing that, you know, brings biotech, high-tech workers and companies to San Diego is probably more determined by our quality of life than kinds of zoning. Quality of life is the educational system. Are we going to have an educational system where the kind of expertise they need is trained? It's determined by neighborhoods. Are we going to have livable, walkable neighborhoods that we can attract these kind of companies? Both Nathan and I had pledged never to change the weather that we have in San Diego, so we will always have that attraction to bring people to San Diego. But we have to work on these other issues, and you need someone who has the experience with it, who has the educational background to make sure that that occurs. And we will continue to be a high-tech center. We have to work on other areas. We have to work on tourism. We have to work on manufacturing. But we must nurture high-tech. It's become a symbol of San Diego, and we will keep it that way.
Yeah, I've pledged as mayor to make San Diego the most competitive place in the world, to create those 21st century jobs, so many of which are found in the biotech and high-tech and clean tech sectors, the energy sectors. And I've worked on these issues a long time. In the short time I've been in the Assembly, we spent a lot of our time working on them. We authored tax reform to try and help. We were the legislator of the year for BayBio, for Biocom, for a lot of these organizations that were there. We worked on regulatory issues, we worked on water issues. Time and again, we've demonstrated a real commitment to helping to grow. When I announced my candidacy for mayor, people said, "Are you going to stand in front of City Hall?" And I said, "No, it's a horribly ugly building." It's also, in a lot of ways, a symbol of a lot of what's wrong in San Diego. I went to a technology company right here down the road, where we told the story of a company that in a recession has gone from $1 million in revenue to $500 million in revenue, but more importantly, a company that's providing really good paying jobs. Jobs that provide health care. They provide retirement. You make enough money, you can buy a home. You can put your kids through college. There is a diversity of jobs. And they're changing people's lives. One of my biggest supporters, he's literally my tallest supporter, Bill Walton, tells a story about a devastating back injury. And then an amazing technological breakthrough that changed his life. And that was NuVasic, the company right here down the road. And that is why in my campaign I've got the support of over 300 CEOs from those life science companies, those technology companies. That's why I'm the candidate endorsed by Biocom, because we have a specific plan and policy to make us a competitive place that brings in all the things we're talking about: your education, your infrastructure, the streamlining of your permitting, your regulatory environment, your place in a global world and global society. But all of that is encompassed in a broad vision of truly making San Diego the world's most innovative city. And I said I want to change the city slogan from America's finest city to the world's most innovative city. Drive a real conversation about building those jobs, those economies, and having that be our foundation in our future. Thank you.
Just a couple follow-up questions. Congressman Filner, you mentioned about improving the quality of life. How do we do that in the middle of a recession?
Let me do it directly. Are you going to alternate who's first and who's second, or are we going to?
Oh yeah, this was just a specific
Oh, I'm
question
sorry.
for you.
Okay. Look, the quality of life is determined by not only the weather, but as I said, your educational system, the infrastructure, the parks, the livability of the community. How many have lived in Mira Mesa since it was first built, by the way? Any people here? You know, Mira Mesa was the poster child of what not to do when we started a community. It was not planned. Schools, houses open, there were no schools. There wasn't the parks. There wasn't the places to shop. You all remember that. The kids had to be bused to Claremont. We should have learned. We should have learned that it is planning that is chiefly responsible for the quality of life. And the present mayor, for all the good he's done, he abolished the Department of Planning when he took over and folded it into a developmental services department. That was wrong. And I'm going to change that, not just blow up the boxes and reinstitute a planning department, but show a whole new direction of City Hall, that City Hall ought to be taken. With Mira Mesa, by the way, in my thinking here, that is, we ought to have a agency, department that's looking holistically at all these issues, at the environment, at housing, at transportation, parks. All that has to be done. I'm having a contest, by the way, to rename an agency or department that shows a new direction. And people are submitting entries to me, and I've been looking at the entries, and the winning one in my view so far is A+, the Agency for Prosperity, Livability, and Urban Sustainability. That is, what do we have to do to make a walkable, livable, bikeable community? How should we make transportation, more public transportation, allow people to get to where they work or play in a better fashion without having to resort to the individual automobile? How do we make sure that the infrastructure, and here's a very important thing, most of the infrastructure spending that we have done in San Diego for the last decade or more has been to downtown. A couple $100 million a year. It's time to end that. We have a CCDC, Center City Development Corporation, which has been abolished. I would have done that as mayor if the courts and the governor had not done it. We need a neighborhood investment corporation that says to Mira Mesa, that says to Linda Vista, that says to Sherman Heights, your infrastructure determines your quality of life. And we have to spend as much time on that as we did on downtown. I can go into any neighborhood in 5 minutes to determine what the top 3 infrastructure needs are, whether it's potholes or it's ball fields, whether it's the rec center maintenance, whether it's the library hours. And we should be working that community by community. And that's what raises the quality of life here in San Diego.
Earlier, you said that you've been endorsed by the biotech industry here. Can you please share with us the specifics of any plan that you or these biotech companies have?
Yeah, we talked about that goal of making this the most competitive place in the world to create 21st century jobs. And it really fits into a couple specific categories. The first is making sure that the city is there to actually facilitate and help you open your business. You know, if you have someone that wants to hire people, that's not always someone that's going to get a job, that's someone that's going to pay taxes. Those taxes are things we're going to put back into rebuilding your neighborhood. So how do people see our city as an ally and a friend? If you want to start a little biotech company, we went out and did an analysis, and you could be looking at 5 or 6 different permits that you need to get, which is 5 or 6 different city places you actually sometimes have to drive and park and go and fill out a form. Well, that doesn't make any sense. And we don't even have to be brilliant here. We just got to look around and say, who does it better? New York City has an online process. You can do it all online. Enter all your information. It tracks it. It routes it for you. I was out at a small business that was telling me a problem they'd had, and they made 4 trips to City Hall. Right? And that didn't make sense. If you were there, you could see the problem and understand it. And I've said as mayor, we'll have a small business office that actually comes to you. You're paying the bills. Why do you always have to go down there? Why don't they come to see you? So we talked about really changing that environment in terms of how we do that. Bob was right. If you're going to build the economy of the future, you're going to build the education system of the future. You mentioned Qualcomm earlier. I was there. I said, what do you need to create great jobs? They said, we have great jobs. We have hundreds of them open today. And we have thousands of applicants, but the applicants don't have the skills the jobs because the world's changed and our education system is struggling to catch up. I spent 10 months last year with Council President Tony Young. My friend, we went out, we listened to parents, we listened to students, we listened to teachers, principals, and administrators, and we came up with an education plan to end the digital divide, to take best practices and replicating the creation of a STEM or STEAM academy as a feeder system for our UCs for engineering and science and math. We talked about getting all of our government entities together about workforce, and Tony Young came out this week and endorsed my education plan. He said it's the best one out there, and he looks forward to working with me to implement it. And then we also talked about our infrastructure, because our infrastructure has an economic impact. We put out a detailed plan for how we not only fill your potholes, but how we rebuild crumbling infrastructure, because there's a very real economic cost to it. When I put out our infrastructure plan, we talked about not only the impact to our neighborhoods, but we talked about the impact to our economy. I had a business owner there who has fleet vehicles, and he talked about how much more it cost him to do vehicle repair because our roads are in such bad conditions. And so those are a few of the things that are in our jobs plan, our economic plan, to really make us a place where our citizens and our children will be able to get really good paying jobs right here in San Diego.
Okay, this next question is service related, and we'll start with you, Assemblyman Fletcher. With nearly 80,000 residents, making it the largest neighborhood in the city of San Diego, as mayor, how would you ensure that Mira Mesa gets its fair share of city services, such as access to senior housing, senior services, youth services, park and rec services?
We have seen I agree with Bob in one terms, an unequal distribution in terms of a focus on neighborhoods. And having represented Mira Mesa for the last 4 years, we've worked at the state level to try and ensure that things get taken care of here. And as mayor, it will be no different. It's time to rebuild San Diego. It's time to rebuild our neighborhood and focus on those areas. That starts with the infrastructure plan we put out, where we outlined there's a deferred maintenance backlog of between $840 million and $1 billion. And I've said as mayor, we're going to come in and do a quick study and analysis on all of the needs. We're going to put them in the proper priority, but we're going to make sure we have equitable distribution of those dollars so that the entire city benefits. And that means you come into Mira Mesa and you talk and you listen and you learn what your highest priorities are. And we figure out how to finance that. It means a real conversation about other ways we can reform the operations of city government to make sure we have money for those basic things. I take my voice to city parks all the time. So how do you generate savings? We put out an energy plan. It's on our website at nathanfletcher.com, where we can reduce the city's energy consumption by 25%. Just doing that saves $86 million in general fund money. That's money that can go right back into Mira Mesa. That's money that can go right back into our parks and our rec centers, into our public safety to make sure that we have the services we need. $210 million in enterprise funds. And you know what else it does? It puts a lot of people back to work in terms of doing the upgrades and the retrofits. And so it's a combination of making it a priority for infrastructure. It's a combination of reforming the operations of city government. And then it really is a great focus on listening to our neighborhoods. What are your priorities? What do you want? Every neighborhood in San Diego is unique and different. And we've got to make sure as mayor that you're providing the services that neighborhood and community wants, in the order they want, in the hours they want, and the priority they want. And as mayor, we will do all of this.
there's no question that Mira Mesa has felt that services have gone down in the last decade. I don't care if you're talking about library hours, rec center hours, community police, available, whatever you want to talk about, we've gone down. Part of it's the pension problem, part of it's other means. We have got to get back to the services of our city. And the first thing we do, as I said, is we take as much money as we can get from that annual CCDC budget, although they're trying to get every nickel that they can and keep it there, into a neighborhood investment corporation where we start going through the infrastructure needs of in each and every community. We update those community plans because they have not been done. And we cannot do some of the things we want to do with regard to planning our communities without those updates. I have the only one who has a different pension plan that's on the border where I can put, without new taxes, $550 million into the general fund over the next 10 years, which will actually go to these very things that you mentioned in your question. I will listen to the community. I've spent my whole political career listening to the communities, whether it's the planning groups, the town councils. You are the experts. You know what's going on in Mira Mesa. I have to listen to you. And if some developer says, no, that's not right, no, I go with the community. And that's who will be advising me. That's who is going to be my advisors. I'm the only candidate who's running, who will represent a break in who has controlled City Hall for the last 40 or 50 years. There's a reason why the infrastructure here has not been working. There was a reason why Mira Mesa was built without the schools and parks being ready. There's a reason why we don't have bikeable, livable, walkable communities. There's a reason why money has gone, for example, to the hotel owners in this city rather than to the infrastructure needs of our communities. And that's because a certain small group of people controls things. And you've got to break that power. I think my candidacy represents a break with that situation. I have never been supported by this special interest. If you read the blogs, the Union Tribune has said that their chief goal over the next month is to keep me from getting into the runoff in the mayor's race. I'm the one they fear the most because I'm a threat to their control over San Diego. To me, that means you ought to vote for me because they're so scared of me. But what we have to do is take our communities and neighborhoods seriously, listen to them, and then put the money in. Just the other day at downtown, I was at City Hall. They gave $35 million of our tax money to private hotel owners to do what they want with it. That's wrong. That's what we should be. We should be putting the money into our neighborhoods.
Thank you very much. Now on to the next question. Access to public transportation is lacking in Mira Mesa, making getting around in Mira Mesa near impossible without a car. And as mayor, how would you address this issue? Assemblyman Fletcher? Please
start with me first. Okay. We talk a lot, you hear a lot of conversations in the mayor's race about filling potholes. And we're going to fill your potholes. And we're going to fill your potholes. But if all we do is fill potholes, we're never going to become a great city. Because great cities have great transit. Great cities have the communities we're talking about where you can live and work and enjoy. They have culture. They have walkable communities. They have great parks. They have links and ties between them. And so I've said as mayor, we're going to drive a real conversation about how we build the city of the future. And you'll hear people say, oh, that'll take too long, you can't do this, you can't do that. Well, if we'd started those conversations in the past, we would be there today. And I think that there are a lot of great innovative ideas that are out there. There's a FAST plan, a really innovative system that's worked in Brisbane, Australia, in terms of a rapid transit bus system that could potentially link all of our neighborhoods and communities and give you viable options. Because right now you don't have an option unless you happen to live and work along the trolley line, which doesn't come here. You don't have a viable option. So how do we create it? But in order to do that, it is going to take a mayor that's willing to come in to exercise some independence. You know, when I announced for mayor, I was told, they said, you won't have any support. I said, what do you mean I won't have any support? And they said, well, it's all been spoken for. All of the kind of establishment downtown interest is going to be with Dumanis. Mayo's going to have the builders and the Republican Party. Bob will have his traditional base of support, and they said there's nothing left for you. But we've gone out in the course of this campaign and we've built that. We've demonstrated the independence of someone who will be independent of both parties, someone who will be willing to go out and talk to new folks in new ways, and solicit new ideas, and put those ideas into action. In this debate, we've put out ideas about how we actually specifically, with goals and specific ideas, have more bikeable communities. We've put out plans on clean water. We've talked about the role that energy conservation plays in terms of building the economy of the future. We've talked about transit in terms of building the city. But in order to do that, you need a mayor that's demonstrated leadership, you need a mayor that has specific plans and ideas, and you need a mayor that has a demonstrated ability to bring people together and get them done with a real vision for the future. And in order to accomplish the types of things we're talking about in terms of building those transit systems, you got to go out and you got to do that. And that's what I represent and what I'll bring not only to Mira Mesa, but to all of San Diego.
I thank Nathan for that introduction to my answer, because he enumerated all the qualities which I will bring to the office. I thank you, Nathan. But it's also here, I usually say I like his answer so much that I make him a czar of transportation or something. But it's a question of priorities. It's really a question of priorities and independence of the traditional interests that have governed the city. There's a reason why we don't have mass transit. Because people have made money on the other way of doing it, and they have not considered a priority what the neighborhoods need or want. I was the only candidate for mayor who was at the recent SANDAG meeting, the San Diego Association of Governments. They produced the regional plan for all of our transportation system. In fact, it was a 50-year plan, the first one in the state, and it was supposed to be a model for the way a community would go. And instead it became a poster child for what you should not do. And I was the only one who spoke against it. It backloaded all the public transportation projects after 20 years. All it did was build new highways. Now, you can't have a transportation system for Mira Mesa if the whole planning, all the federal money goes to the state and goes to the county through the SANDAG plan. If the SANDAG plan says we're not doing any public transit, we're not going to do it. And I told them, if I'm going to become mayor, we're going to switch, we're going to take down that plan anyway and substitute a new one. Because it's simply the wrong priorities at a time when not only our environmental and our energy needs are so important, but it's important for our own health and our own activity that we have more pedestrian friendly, more walkable and bikeable communities, more ways to get to work without us relying on the automobile. So we have to break an old mold. We have to break the control that contractors and road builders have on City Hall and say, we're going to do it differently. And there will be different people at my table that advise me than have advising the mayors that we've had for the last couple decades or more. There are ways to do this. I tried when I was on the, I sit on the Transportation Committee in the Congress. And we tried to get model demonstration projects into the city where, for example, rapid transit buses, a whole new type of buses is used, are used. Is used, are used? New type of system we're going to put in. That is, why do subways work so well? Because they have dedicated lanes, they're underground, but they have dedicated lanes, they don't have any red lights to worry about, but also you have, and they're very, they're fast, but they're also frequent and they're reliable. We can do the same thing with buses. You build buses with platform entrance and exits, so you have quick exit and entry, you have dedicated lanes, you can change red lights, you have frequency, and you have reliability. We can do that and connect Mira Mesa with other parts of our community.
Thank you. So now I have probably the most important question of the night. Are you guys ready? What are we going to do to keep the Chargers in town? Why don't we start with you, Congressman Filner?
Well, I hope we can keep them. I love the Chargers. You know, there's a whole buzz on game day and the tailgating and all that. But I will tell you, the Chargers and the baseball team, because they have a monopoly through the Major League system, they can extort things from cities that they shouldn't get. In this case, we have a billionaire owner of a sports team that makes hundreds of millions, and they're asking for $1 billion from us. I say, no way. You are not going to get public money. This extortion is going to stop. We're not going to give you a private company the public money to make more money, and then you leave town whenever you want, you do whatever you would like, please. But I will say to them, I'll negotiate. I'm a tough negotiator, but I'll negotiate. You know, the city of Green Bay owns its Packers. If I recall, they were the world champions last time, not this year, last time. And they fill every game, every time for the last, 50 years or whatever. Why don't we have part of the ownership of the Chargers if we're going to put in infrastructure? I would like to have share in the profits, share in the team profits if they move, share in the profits as they go along. Then I'll say, okay, we'll invest in you. But I want to make sure we get back what we have put in and more. They have to do more for the city. Why not make sure? And the individuals do a lot with our school kids and others. They could do more. They could do a lot for mentorship and role models. They could do a lot for helping bring people to the stadium that cannot afford maybe to go. The same people who pay the taxes, by the way, which gives them the stadium, can't afford to even go to the games. That's wrong. So yes, let's try to keep the Chargers, but I must say not at any cost. And I think they'll stay. I think they want to stay here, but we're going to have tougher negotiator than a ticket guarantee and the kind of stuff that we've seen before. So let's try to keep them, but they're not going to extort any money from this city any longer.
Yeah, it has to be done without general fund expenditure because we cannot take money that is designed for our neighborhoods, it's designed for public safety, for our parks and rec, and put it behind building a football field. I do believe there is a way to get there, but you have to ensure that your highest priority is the protection of the taxpayers who, through their history, have seen a series of very bad deals. They've seen promises and projections that haven't come to the realization. That's been true in previous stadium deals, that's been true in previous pension deals, it's been true when pensions were actually tied to building stadiums. And I think it's really important that we come out and we lay out the broad parameters and broad strokes. And that is, it has to return money into the general fund. Money that can be invested back into the communities. It has to be something that doesn't just benefit one area of town where you might build a stadium. We need to take a step back and say, how does this benefit the whole city? And for too long, the conversation has been, do you build this big box you put in one part of town and maybe do a little development around that? And then how much do the taxpayers pay? That's the wrong conversation. We need to start talking about a regional facility that instead of using 15 or 20 times a year, you use 300, 350 days a year. We should talk about, if we have the highest World Cup viewership of any city in America, why don't we have a Major League Soccer team that plays there? We should talk about consolidating the operations of the sports arena into that area and then turning that into a manufacturing incubator, a job training center, an apprenticeship program, where we can expedite permits, we can give people jobs if they commit to local hire out of the programs that are there. We got to have a real conversation about what you do with the existing Qualcomm site. Imagine the urban parks you could build on the banks of the river. Rarely do you acquire a lot of new open space, but the new open space that we could build. About an area where we put housing, an area that we have transit already built in, and how all of that fits together in a broader, bigger vision of making us the world's most innovative city, of making good areas for job creation, of making a project that in totality will benefit the taxpayers, not cost them. And then the handful of times a year you play football, we can open it up and they can play football there. For the rest of the days, it's still a facility that is benefiting and serving the broader public and really moving our whole city forward. And we do have to have a tough negotiator. There is no doubt about that. I spent a decade in the Marine Corps. I was a human intelligence, counterintelligence specialist. I was an interrogator. I interrogated Al-Qaeda. I can handle negotiating a stadium deal. We got to do it right. It's got to be the taxpayers.
But you got to do it without an AK-47.
Thank you there, gentlemen. So the next question. Mira Mesa is the only neighborhood in the city without a community performing arts center. How would you help the community build one? And that's with the Fletcher.
Yeah, if you have to we have to make a real commitment to the arts, and there's a number of reasons for it. One of which is cultural, in terms of the cultural importance. One of just in terms of the creative aspect that we want our children and our communities to develop. One of them is really economic. There's a great book out there called The Creative Class by Richard Florida. And he goes through and he says cities that are very creative drive a lot of patents, and patents is one of the metrics in my economic plan for how we measure our success so we can create those technology centers. And he found a direct statistical tie and correlation between the number of patents a city drives and the number of artists it has. And so if you like the arts because you like the arts, we're going to invest in the arts. If you don't like the arts, we're still going to invest in it because there's an economic tie and benefit. And so we've come and we've put in place a number of ideas. We've gone and looked at what great cities have done. What has Philadelphia done? What has Miami done? What has Denver done? What have these areas done in terms of creating centers for creative economies and measuring the actual economic return and the creative vitality index so we can demonstrate to the public it is a good and wise investment, and how do we do it in new ways. And we have a lot of specific ideas for how we do that, but it has to be a focus, it has to be citywide, and you have to have a mayor that's going to make a real commitment to it. Thank you.
I'm sorry, did you say Mira Mesa was the only community?
It's the only major community in the city without a community performing arts center, yes.
I'm not sure that's accurate, but look, what we have not done in this city is use all of our neighborhoods with all of its talents, with the diversity of different populations, in a way that benefits the whole city. We have various ethnic groups in San Diego, whether it's the murals that we have in Chicano Park, whether it's a proposed Filipino village, whether in the south or the north, or both, whether it's new African immigrants and their arts and dances. All of these can build an incredible city, and we have to encourage them all, and we can do what Mira Mesa needs while also using the diversity of our communities to showcase different things that will make us all better citizens, will bring people to Mira Mesa. Mira Mesans would go to other communities on my new transportation system, of course, having been educated in my better schools. It's a question always of priorities. I said it before. If neighborhoods are neglected in City Hall, you're not going to have a community arts center. If neighborhoods cannot get the money, if the arts and culture are not celebrated, and when I talked earlier about what raises the quality of life, I should have mentioned arts and culture. That's what brings, some of these high-tech and other businesses to San Diego. There has to be that. And we should start. I love Nathan's thing. Drive the conversation to different levels. Most cities, the ones Nathan mentioned even, they have a public arts assessment on new development to bring public arts to our town. You go to any community that looks like that has public art, you see it from the airport or downtown, you go to Minneapolis or Seattle, or you can name a whole number of cities. Why? Because the people there are committed to doing that, and they do it both through taxation and through voluntary means. But you have to have a mayor who drives that. And yes, the arts and culture have economic means, but arts and culture elevate us as human beings. The mayor should be speaking out against the fact that we're losing music in our schools. That should never happen. When I was on the school board, we did not have any cuts in those areas, even though there was pressure to do it. That's what elevates us. That's what gives kids an opportunity to move in different directions, to exercise both sides of the brain and figuring out what's going on. So you have to be a spokesperson for the arts and culture for their own sake. And we should take advantage of the diversity of our communities, that Mira Mesans can add something to this whole city, as Sherman Heights can. We can't do that. It takes leadership and vision.
Congressman Filner, given your answer, would you support an increase to TOT funding for the arts?
Well, part of it, the TOT does go for that now. What I would do, by the way, I mentioned this, I think, in another answer. It just happened 2 days ago at City Hall. They want to raise the TOT, the transit occupancy tax, to finance an enlarged convention center. So what did they do? They asked the hotel owners, should we raise the tax? I mean, a tax is a public thing. It'll be